and it's time for another sprint zone. It's an alternate sprint zone. It'll be the last week for that, and we are just coming off of a flat change where one of the riders, and that would be Greg, didn't have enough valve extenders and tubes to fix the flat that he had. So we must bid him adieu. Regardless, got a strong crew here today. Carlos, who is getting his final tune-up for the states or nationals in Florida. We have Marcelo, who's been riding exceptionally strong recently. We can see in the back there Brian and Byron and a lot of other players here. It's a little bit windy, and I'm up front because we had been stopped for a while and I wanted to keep the party honest. So we're looking at my watts. It's in the 150s, so we're not throwing down a ton of anything. But 19 miles an hour is reasonable. And there's been a little bit of lethargy in the group where there are strong riders and they just kind of want to sit back and enjoy shelter for a while. So I'm going to keep everybody honest, go to the front here, and keep things lively. So now my wattage is going up a little bit. Ooh, in the 260s. Ooh, maybe 300 there. Oh, I didn't realize I was putting down that kind of wattage. Regardless, Hernan is on the stick and on my wheel, and as is Carlos. Marcelo pulling up the rest of the pack back there. I can see Dean. And here is where the trouble starts. Matthew Michaels goes to the front. And at this point, you can see I'm pushing 280 watts, and he still thinks that is not quite enough. He goes to the front and is working pretty hard, and you can see I had to go into the mid threes just to stay on his wheel. I've got mixed feelings about going that hard this early, at least into this dangerous corner. But up the hill, I think it's okay. It's definitely keeping people honest. And look at what happened in the back here. That acceleration by Matthew caused a disturbance in the force where Hernan was unable to hold the wheel. And Marcelo, who has now made himself in the GC status, finds my wheel quite easily. And pretty much it looks like it's almost game over for anybody else that's back there. People sleeping on the wheel. So here's this corner. I don't really like the speeds that we're going into this at, especially when there's a little bit of wind. The wind in this day is coming off of our right shoulder, and I've got my 55 mil deep wheels on that aero frame, and I'm not certain what's going to happen in this corner. So I'm going to back off a little bit. Sometimes there is sand here, and as per the rules of engagement, we don't really want to take advantage of this corner. Regardless, that little stunt by Matthew has accelerated the beginning of the sprint zone a bit, and he is beginning to check out. I'm still gathering myself, checking out to make sure there's no sand in here before hitting it again, but he's gone pretty hard. I probably should have asked him for his power file to throw in here, but everybody pretty much can see here he's putting down some watts. So I'm in the mid twos, and Marcelo comes around pretty hard. And as you can see, I had to throw down, low fours just to get on Marcelo's wheel. And you can see he's working hard. And there's Dean. And I might say sleeping in the back. He's got a lot of horsepower, but maybe a little bit too late. He is definitely a strong man, as strong as the rest of us, but Marcelo's been riding exceptionally well, and he would be a hard man to bring back. And when I take over here, able to throw in a little wattage, Dean by himself having to bridge that with no help, pretty much is going to put him in a spot of difficulty. Marcelo wisely taking a little bit of shelter, and as I stated before, the little bit of the wind is off of the right shoulder, so he's in the right spot these days. I don't have the camera up front, but pretty much everybody knows that Matthew is beginning to check out. But what do we have here? Byron with Brian in tow, just a ramming and a thumping like a freight train. This is the man of steel flexing hard. Dean unable to even catch the tail, the train of Superman here. Now Dean should have been echeloned slightly to get advantage of some of the draft here. Either it's pride or knowledge or just being gassed, but I guess he didn't want any part of that, and it was game over for him. And so now Byron takes a tiny bit of respite behind me. And the operative word being tiny, a tiny bit, because all he needs is a few seconds to recharge before he brings on the heat once again. Marcelo had done a stellar job, but he was going super hard up front, probably not realizing the big men had caught us. I have to go really hard just to stay on Byron and Brian's wheel here. And there's Marcelo, gets up. He's in the right position, but I believe he had worked just a little too hard out front trying to bring back Matthew, and I think that's going to be the rest of his day. Looking forward here, we can see that Byron, and this is an impressive flex, as I said before, is able to come from way behind to bring back Matthew. That's that's impressive. And there goes this car that like buzzed us at 55 miles an hour, and for me it was about a foot, which I think is like ridiculous. Every other car gave us its due except for this guy. Either he's unaware, but and I'm going to digress here. I mean, there were some people on the TFR group that did not agree with us being where we were in the road, saying the car we just basically deserve what we got. Come on, people. We have an equal right to the road just like everybody else. That car could have moved a little bit 3 feet to the left like everybody else and everyone would have been safe. But if you think of risking somebody's life to prove a point that isn't even worth making, disgusting. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. So Matthew's gone to the front, still going really hard. Byron, who made a stellar chase here, is now going to push the pace. He is not one to sit in. And if you've seen some of Byron's videos from the TTH, you know that he's a major player even there. And here's kind of a mistake tactically, at least, for me. So there's a little bit of wind out here, and it's coming off of now our left shoulder. So it'd be nice to get a little bit of draft, but I'm somewhat guttered here. I've got a tiny bit of draft off of Brian, who's got a tiny bit off of Byron. But as you can see here, we can see the big man is recharging nicely, and this is why I have the camera here. So he goes with what he probably thinks is a reasonable pace for it to get on. And you can see that there's kindness. He looks back to see if people are actually going to be on. Problem here is he's too far to the right. So because he's too far to the right, we're basically guttered back here. And for me, even now, look at this, 300 watts, just trying to close some gap here. And at this point, I'm barely on Brian's wheel, and Brian gives up the ghost. And it's like, okay, I'm too far back to be able to hand with the big man. And you can see Byron is just slightly echeloned on off of Matthew, which is ideally where we would have wanted to be. So if Matthew had been over to the left a little bit, I may have hung on maybe to where that tree is. But as you can see, it's game over for yours truly, and the big men will be battling it out here. As you can see, look at the gap that we have put on everybody else. That's Dean, that's Marcelo, etc., etc., etc. And as we look at the lovely countryside, we can see what has happened here. My excuse for the day is I had a few hard days in a row, and my legs had not come good for a while. Raced on Saturday, rode on Sunday, ran on Monday, and now it's Tuesday, and my legs just didn't have the snap to be able to respond to those big accelerations. But it's good training, and in time, my legs will come good, and I will be able to participate more in the melee. But I must say, everybody is much more fit at this time of the year. Whether it's Zwift, it's fat bikes, whether it's gravel bikes, or whatever. And you can see riders that are definitely evolving as far as their strength. Marcelo being one of them, exceptionally strong these days. I'm going to have to up my game to be able to compete with everybody, especially when we get the regular sprint zone back. This isn't my favorite one because of all the corners and the climbing. That being said, our regular route is almost open, at least the prospect one is. So next week, assuming I'm able to attend, there will be smooth, fresh pavement to enjoy. Indeed. So looking at the lovely countryside, and the reason we're looking at the lovely countryside is basically, well, there's really not much to see. Up the road, there's a lot of people, that would be 3. but there's no way I'm going to catch them. Behind me, there's people coming, but I really can't see them. So I'm in no man's land. You can see, 180 watts, whatever. I'm keeping up some good effort for what I still have in my legs, but I'm not trying to contest this sprint or even get a fourth place. But it's good training, and you can see my speed has dropped because of the wind. Looking back there, you could see Dean is coming pretty hard, and he's got Marcelo in tow. I wonder why the software does this with the rotating thing. Yeah, I think I know why. I just don't know how to control it, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, you can see Dean coming pretty hard back there, and he's made a stellar effort working with Marcelo to bring me back. Looking at those two pseudo working together, they are coming pretty hard, and it's unfortunate that Dean was not able to participate with the rest of us. And he's a strong rider. He makes really super strong surges, but he's really never there for the real melee. He's usually a good starter. He leads people out, does nice sprints, but after 500 yards and 500 watts, he's pretty much dead. So at this point, I let him go by. I make a feeble attempt, but 300 watts, and my legs are screaming from the prior 4 days of work. So it's not going to happen for me. But that's okay. So kind of sitting in here, reasonable watts, and I say just reasonable because I'm tired, and I'm certain Dean is tired, and Marcelo's back there. So we're gonna just kind of just push and get some effort out of this, but it's game over. And there should be congratulations to our winners. Marcelo working hard back there, able to stay on Dean's wheel, which was nice. And tactically, this is what's kind of important, to save a little something up front. Have a little cognizance for when people are coming around to be able to get back on. But that'll come with either experience or fitness. So it looks like Dean starts to ramp it up a little bit. I'm still on his wheel, and the draft here is good because you can see even at 20 miles an hour, 140, 150 watts, something like that. It's a good time. And I'm getting a little bit of shelter because Dean is over to the left just a little bit here, and I'm happy about it. But I'm not looking to sprint around anybody at this point. That being said, and just in case there was any doubt, yeah, I could have sprinted around here and gotten myself a lame, fourth place. But I'm like, what's the point? I got my goodie in, and life is good. So, a good time was definitely had by all. Lots of sleeping early on, and the big man, if you are not on the train early, it's going to be game over. Byron, I just don't know what to say about him. A most impressive effort. And hopefully, we'll be able to do this all again. And until next time, everybody, peace.